Hello YouTube, I'm Nye, you join me in my shop, Fingerstyle Guitar in Sheffield, and you're watching Folk Friend, your one-stop shop for Celtic backing guitar tutorials. In this video I'm going to be showing you how, as a complete beginner, you can learn to use your ears to listen to an Irish tune and pick out the right chords for it. So I'm just going to be talking about major keys, otherwise known as the Ionian mode, in this video. I'm going to be doing a few more in this series which are going to be covering the other modes, Dorian, Aeolian, Mixed Lydian, and how you can take the same theory and apply it to those as well. But for today's video we're just going to be using tunes in the key of D major. We're going to be looking at a tune called Maid Behind The Bar, and if you'd like to try and practice playing along with this at home and test driving your ears using the techniques that I've mentioned, you can find a little card in the corner of the screen which will take you to my free play along video for this. You'll find on that I've written the guitar chords on the screen karaoke style-y, so that you can practice playing along, and there's also several different versions of the chords on there and several different speeds at which you can practice playing that. So go check that out, get it up in another tab, and you'll be able to play along at home. Just a quick thing before we get started as well, if you do enjoy this video and it does help you out, please do me a very big favour, hit the little like button down there, hit the subscribe as well, you'll get my free videos straight to your inbox every weekend. Hit the bell next to it to be notified when I post new things. So, the first thing that you need to know in order to back Irish music on the guitar is which chords go together with keys. And I've talked about this lots in my previous videos. I really recommend that you go and check out the two parts of my guide to music theory for Celtic musicians. You can find part 1 linked in the corner of the screen just up there, and part 2 is linked from that as well, because those will show you why the key signatures, aka which sharps or flats are in a key, are how they are. As a quick and easy way of remembering those, and also how that tells you all the chords that work with a tune in any key. So I really recommend those to you. If you're completely new to music theory, go and check them out. Honestly, they're really helpful. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to assume that you know the basic key signatures for folk music, which the ones you need to know are C major has no sharps, G major has 1 sharp, D major has 2 sharps, A major has 3 sharps, and maybe occasionally you might find a tune in E major as well. E major has 4 sharps. We're going to be talking about a tune in the key of D, so we've got 2 sharps, and those are F sharp and C sharp. The sharps are always added in the same order. It's fat cats get drunk after eating broccoli, so that's nice and easy to remember. Now, I went on in my music theory videos to demonstrate why it's always the same pattern of chords that are available in a major key. And always you can reduce a tune when you're first practicing playing along by ear to just 3 chords maximum. Often you can do it with just 2. And I really recommend that you get used first to picking out where the 3 chords would go and not worrying about any of the others. Because once you get that framework clearly in your head, it's very easy to jazz up your chords with substitutions, little chord runs, all sorts of cool stuff. But if you're putting your cool stuff in the wrong places, it will always sound dreadful no matter how cool it is. So it's much more important to train your ears to getting used to where chords 1, 4 and 5 go before you get started. So, for the key of D major, our chord 1 obviously is D. Our chord 4, D, E, F sharp, G. So G is our chord 4, and chord 5 is A. If you'd like to get hold of a tool which helps you remember which chords go together really quickly and easily, then I recommend the amazing mode wheel from Fingerstyle Guitar. This is a thing that I invented about a year ago. What it does is it shows you all the notes that go together in a given mode, so that'll tell you what notes are in your tune. It also shows you all the chords then which fit with a tune in that mode, so that's a really handy tool for quick and easy music theory memorisation. There are some basic rules to folk music which are almost always true, and the first and most important one is that chord 5 goes on every 7th foot tap. So for most folk tunes, jigs and reels being the main kind of rhythms, so I'll give you an example with a reel because that's the time signature that we're in, 4/4. You've got a bar which is 4 crotchets or quarter beats for American and I now know Australian viewers out there. And in that bar you're going to be tapping your foot twice, because Irish music rolls along so fast you can't possibly tap your feet for all 4. If it's like dun da 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 dun da 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 dun da 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 da, that's how fast your crotchets are, so your feet aren't going to tap that fast. So you're going to find your foot tapping twice per bar, dung, da, 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 ba, da, da, bung, da, ba, da, 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 that kind of thing. When your foot taps are, that is where you can think about there being one chord for each foot tap to begin with. So with those foot taps, almost always a tune will start on its key chord. And in the case of Maid Behind the Bar, which we're going to look at in a minute, our key chord is D, because we're in the key of D. Every 7th foot tap, you will find that you get chord 5. And what happens is the first time you get to that foot chord 5, you tend to stay on it for 2 foot taps, aka 1 whole bar. And the second time, usually, you'll find that you resolve from chord 5 back to chord 1. And that is because in Irish music you've got an A part and a B part. Each is repeated twice. The A part is 8 bars long, and therefore your 7th foot tap is halfway through the A part the first time you get to it, and it's at the end of the A part the second time you get to it. And you always end a section by going from chord 5 back to chord 1, and that makes it feel finished. The only time that this is not true is when sometimes you'll find a tune that doesn't really resolve back to the root note at the end of a section. And I'll give you some examples of why that is later on and how you can spot those. So we basically know that the tune is going to begin on chord 1. We know it's going to go chord 5 every 7th foot tap, and it's going to go chord 5 back to chord 1 at the end of every section. The next thing that we need to do is work out where the chord 4s go, if there are any. And basically what you do here is listen out to the tune, and every time you get a feeling like the tune is kind of going away a little bit from its home centre where it started, that is your chord 4 section. There is a kind of science to this, because what you're doing when you listen for chords is you're actually only listening to the notes that are on the dominant beats of the melody. So in the case of Maid Behind the Bar, we've got that's our first 2 bars. And the dominant notes there are like that. Both of those notes, we've got an F sharp and an A. And in a D major chord, the notes are a D, an F sharp and an A, like this. So both of those notes are notes that come out of a D major chord, and therefore the tune is starting on D major. I do not advocate looking at the music and trying to work out the chords from it. It's going to give you some very unnatural sounding results doing it that way, and people tend, if they've come from a classical background or something like that, I find a lot of people tend to try and work that out because they kind of second guess their ears and they want to double check by doing that. I really don't recommend it. The more you can use your ears and see what the melody feels like and try and respond to that, you're going to get so much better results by doing it that way. Please try and do that and don't try and follow it off the sheet music. I'm only telling you this about which notes are in a chord and reflecting that from the melody so that you know that that's what you're actually doing, and then you can go away and not think about the fact that that's what you're doing ever again and just try and do it by feeling instead. The first 2 bars of the tune we've discovered are D major, as I said they would be, and they almost always are for all kinds of folk music. You usually start on your key chord. What you want to do then is listen through the next couple of bits and see if there's any parts of that melody where it feels like it's kind of moved away from that, where it isn't your 7th foot tap where your chord 5 goes. So I'm just going to play the A part, and then I'm going to shout out where it feels to me like there's a chord 4 section. So the part in that where I think chord 4 should go is where it goes up here. Around that kind of area. And the reason for that is when I listen to that melody, dum ba da ba da ba da ba dum ba da ba da, I'm in my house and it is a nice day, and now I'm going to the park, I'm going outside, I'm going somewhere else. It kind of feels like that in my head. It's like it's gone, then it goes via chord 5 and it goes, yeah, I'm going home again now, you know? So that's the feeling of a chord 4 section, and you really want to get the feel for that know when the tune feels like it's gone somewhere else, put your chord 4 there. Let's have a quick little look at what the dominant notes are in that section and see whether they back me up on that feeling. So we've got... that is the first bar of it. So we had F sharp as one dominant note. That's where my foot tap is. And then we've got a B as the second one. And then D. And then the next bar, F sharp, G, E, and B. So we had F sharp as the first dominant note. F sharp is in chord 1. Then we had B. B is not in chord 1. Chord 1 is D, F sharp and A. And a B note appears in chord 4, which is G, B and D. So there's a note from chord 4. The next dominant beat was another B, so there's another note from chord 4. And the last one was D, which is like chord 1. So we've got 2 out of 4 dominant beats in that little segment, which are notes from chord 4, and that is probably why it feels like it's kind of moved away like that, because those main beats are chord 4 notes, if you like. If you looked at that on the sheet music, you might say to yourself, oh well, 2 of them are chord 1, so I'm going to stay on chord 1. But to me, when you actually listen to it, it feels like it's moved, and that's why I say, if you can, don't analyse the sheet music and try and work out chords that way. You won't get good results doing that. If you trust the feeling that you get from listening to the melody, you'll get a much better set of results. And that's also compounded by the fact that different players will play the tune slightly differently, and that might alter how you feel about which chords go in certain places. So always listen to the people you're playing with. Don't just rely on the sheet music if you can. So what we know now is that we've got a framework something like this for our fundamental chords. We've got our chord 1 at the beginning and at the end. We've got our chord 5s on the 7th foot tap and going from 5 back to 1 at the end of the sections. And now we know as well where our chords 4s go. And now we can practice playing that along with the tune. And again, you can practice this along with my free play-along video for Maid Behind the Bar, which is in the box down below. So I'm going to play the melody, and I'm going to just play my simple chords along with that so that you can hear them. The A part repeating now. There we go. So that is the basic thing that you need to learn to do, just getting the feel for the 1 sections, the 4 sections and the 5 sections. Now I want to tell you about a few very basic complications that you can add in, substitutions, once you've got the feel for where your 1s, 4s and 5s go. So the very first substitution, which everybody can start throwing in, is related minor chords for chords 1 and 4. Every major chord has a related minor chord, and vice versa, every minor chord has a related major chord. For a major chord, I'll show you with my mode wheel here, D major is our chord 1. And to find its related minor, you go 2 steps back within the key scale. So we're going to go down to B, and B minor is related to D major. And the reason that those 2 are related is because they contain 2 out of 3 of the same notes. So here's the notes of B minor, B, D and F sharp. And here's the notes of D major, D, F sharp and A. So you can see there, 2 out of 3 of those are the same, and that's why they're usable interchangeably. Swapping out a major chord for its related minor chord is going to give your chords a darker feel, and it's a really nice thing that you can do if you're going to play a tune through a couple of times. Maybe the first time play the simple chords, the second time throw in some substitutions, adds a nice bit of variation, and it makes it feel a bit more like the tune is telling a story that evolves over time, rather than just telling the same story several times through as the tune repeats. So the first thing that I could think about doing with this tune's A part would be I could switch any one of my Ds to a B minor. The only one I wouldn't switch is the very last one right at the end, because you kind of have to come home for the story to feel finished, and it's nice to kind of round off each section before you move into the next part. So at the end of the A part I'm going to finish on D, and at the end of the B part too. However, any of the other Ds in the tune I could switch to B minors. And it's basically to taste which ones you do that with. And the other substitution we can do is chord 4. In this case our chord 4 is G, there it is, and I can swap that to its related minor as well, and I find that in the same way. I go 2 steps back in the scale, so G is related to E minor, and I can play E minor instead of G. Now if you let the tune play onto the B part, the fundamentals are exactly the same. We've got the same kind of structure for the B part. Chord 4 actually goes in the same place in the 3rd bar, just because of the way that the tune has been written. And what I've done on the chords for the slow play along is I've switched out chord 4 to its related minor, E minor. And the reason particularly that I've done that in this tune is because that section goes like that. So it's starting on an E, and that little section also finishes on an E, and therefore instead of playing chord 4 I've played E minor, which is my related minor for chord 4, so that I've got an E in there at the root of my chord to kind of match the melody. So here is one version of the B part. I'll start out, I'll play it how it's written on the play along, just so you can hear what that sounds like. And here we go. Here's my E minor instead of G. This time I'm doing G. So you get the idea. I'll just demonstrate as well. I'm going to play the B part through once more, and this time I'm going to throw in some B minors instead of some of the Ds. There you go. So you see there I swapped the second bar of D to a B minor, and I also swapped the 4th and 5th bars, which were originally both D, to B minors as well, and that just adds a little bit of a darker flavour to the whole set of chords. There's one other type of substitution that I'm going to tell you about in this video as well. We'll go back to the A part of the tune and I'll demonstrate this for you. So I said that a major chord's related minor is related because it contains 2 out of 3 of the same notes. Well, if you think about it, that's moving down in the scale, and you can find another chord that contains 2 out of 3 of the same notes by moving up the scale. So if we start from D again, D major's got D, F sharp and A in its chord, and if I started from F sharp, I'd get F sharp, A and C sharp in a chord, and that is a chord of F sharp minor. So basically, if you start from a major chord and you go 2 up in the scale, you find another minor chord with which it shares 2 notes. Now this is a slightly less natural sounding substitution in a way, which is why I always tell people about the related minors first. But this can also work well as a substitution. So in the case of chord 1, which is D, I would switch to F sharp minor. And in the case of chord 4, which is G, I could change it to B minor. So let's just have a little demonstration of that. I'll play through the tune again. This time I'm going to swap some of my Ds to F sharp minors. That's F sharp instead of D, and the other one that I mentioned is B minor can go instead of G, because G, A, B. So let's try putting in, instead of the G, I'm going to put in a B minor. So that is all of the main types of substitutions that are available to you. You can use the related minor, which is 2 notes below your chord 1 or 4, and you can use the other type of minor chord which is related as well, which is 2 notes above. You will notice that I haven't mentioned substituting chord 5, and that's because you can't. Chord 5 has its own very definite sections where it goes, and you can't use anything else in place of chord 5. So that is it from me for this week. The most important things to take away from today are that you first need to listen to a tune in a major key and work out where chords 1, 4 and 5 go. Chord 5 goes at the ends of sections, it goes on every 7th foot tap. Chord 1 goes at the beginnings of sections and right at the very end of the section and of the tune. And chord 4, you basically just have to listen out and get the feel for where chord 4 goes. Once you've got a framework in your head for where 1, 4 and 5 go, then you can start putting in some substitutions. You can substitute any major chord for the minor chord which is 2 below it, or the one which is 2 above it in the key scale, and that will work for any key. In the next video I'm going to be coming back to this topic. I'm going to be showing you how you can take this knowledge, use your ear training skills to apply it to other modes, the Dorian mode, the Mixolydian mode and the Aeolian mode, and I'm going to be talking a little bit more about how you can train your ears as well in that video. So keep an eye out for that next weekend. Hit the subscribe button and the little bell next to it to be notified when I upload it. And if you have enjoyed this video, do me a favour as well and hit the like button. Last thing, I have put a card earlier in the video for this, but I did write a book some years ago which is everything you need to know to be a great backing guitarist. All of this stuff I've been talking about in this video is in there, all the music theory you could need, strumming patterns, hundreds of chord diagrams, how to use jazz chords, loads of good stuff. It's available on the Folk Friend website. It's called Backing Guitar Techniques for Traditional Celtic Music. Go and check it out. It's really, really good. Thanks very much for watching then. I will see you all in next weekend's video or on Folky Fridays next Friday at 5:30. Cheers for watching and I'll see you soon.